studied archaeology and history of art at the University of Leipzig in Germany, where she received her MA in 1999. In 2002, she obtained her PhD at the Albert Ludwig University of Freiburg in Germany, specializing on ancient Cypriot grave reliefs. She obtained also a postgraduate education in museum management at the Academy of the German Museum of Munich. She has worked at the Archaeological Museum of Basel in Switzerland, at the Archaeological State Office in Saxony, Germany, and taught as a teaching fellow at the Department of History and Archaeology of the University of Cyprus. From 2003 to 2019, she was curator at the Leventis Municipal Museum of Nicosia. She is actively engaged in research of Cypriot ancient and medieval artifacts, and she has published extensively on related topics. In addition, she curates various cultural exhibitions and carries out museological studies. She is currently working for the Department of Antiquities Cyprus as an archaeologist, museologist for the creation of the new Cyprus Museum in Nicosia. Gabriele Poiner is professor at the Department of Classics, Classical, and Provincial Roman Archaeology of the University of Graz in Austria. Her main research focuses on research interests focused on Greek sculpture, Greek and Roman portraiture and architecture, material culture history, ancient Cyprus and Cypriot sculpture. She has also been leading archaeological field research at the site of Amalgeti in Cyprus. She has published extensively on all of her aforementioned topics. Her most recent publications relate to Cypriot terracottas, the representation of Cypriot deities, Cypriot pictorial art, and Cypriot antiquities in Austrian collections. Closing this short presentation, I would like to kindly ask all our Zoom participants to keep their cameras off and their microphones muted. You may switch on your cameras after the end of the presentation to address your question or comment to the speaker and the rest of the authors. Some of them are here in this very room. So I would now like to invite Elena Pogaji-Richter to coordinate the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vionis, for the nice words. We are really glad to be here today. Dear colleagues, dear friends, dear guests, before we start with tonight's presentation, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Archaeological Research Unit of the University of Cyprus, with special appreciation to Professor Athanasios Vionis, Director of the unit, and Professor Yorgos Papasavvas for their swift and gracious response in hosting this evening's event. The volume of Cypriot antiquities from the Alexander Mallios collection aims to introduce a significant part of Mallios' remarkable collection to both scholars and the broader public. This collection ranks among the most extensive of its kind, and after nearly 4 years of dedicated effort, we are pleased to announce the successful completion of our mission with the delivery of this bulky collection catalog. Of course, I will leave the keynote speaker, Professor Gabriele Poiner, to delve into the topic and present the publication in detail. However, before I invite her to take the floor, Mr. Alexander Mallios, owner of the collection and founder of the Amricha Institute, will deliver a welcome address. Following Mr. Mallios' remarks, Mr. Alexander Gace, the keeper of the collection, will provide a brief overview of the Amricha Institute and the provenance of the objects. Dear Mr. Mallios, αγαπητέ Αλέξανδρε, με αισθήματα ικανοποίησης και μεγάλης χαράς για την ολοκλήρωση του τόμου, σε καλώ στο βήμα να απευθύνεις χαιρετισμούς.
Καλησπέρα σας. Θα πω 2 λόγια στα ελληνικά για να ξέρετε ότι είμαι Κυπραίος. Εντάξει. Αλλά θα συνεχίσω στα αγγλικά. Μου δώσα διαταγή ότι έχει πολλούς ξένους που δεν ξέρουν ελληνικά. Και έτσι θα κάνω την πρώτη μου ομιλία στα αγγλικά. Γι' αυτό αν παρατραβήσω κάτι, μην με παρεξηγάτε. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and guests, after almost 4 years of intensive work, the time has finally come. Our first volume is finished. I'm very happy not least because what I have pursued for a long time is finally beginning to bear fruits. Please allow me to briefly explain what I mean in a few words. As the son of a Cypriot father and a German mother, I was always seeing myself as a mediator between two worlds that have a lot in common, but are also marked by difference. After my family left the former GDR, German Democratic Republic, to come to Cyprus in 1972, I had the chance to spend my late childhood here. I have to admit it has left a lasting influence. Not least of all, I was fascinated by the ruins and the museums of the islands. Our parents attached great importance to our education about the history of Cyprus. We experienced and lived Cypriot history and culture every day. Looking back from where I stand now, those were definitely the most carefree and some of the most exciting days of my life. We lived in Limassol at the time near Amathus. I remember being there a lot, climbing the Acropolis and visiting the temples and the base of the site that bordered the sea. I would never have thought it possible back then, as much I had wanted to one day actually be able to contribute something in the way of research into the site's history. After completing my military service in Cyprus, I went back to the GDR to study. Shortly afterwards, the peaceful revolution followed. Throughout that period, I had been very lucky becoming economically successful, getting married twice, starting a family and settling in Leipzig as a Cypriot citizen. Now that my life has become more settled down and a little calmer, it's a joke, I remember fondly of my time in Cyprus. Rather by change, I found an ancient oil lamp at the German auction house in 2016. The oil lamp was not Cypriot original, but I was surprised that something like that was even possible to acquire. It made me think of the registered collection of antiquities that my family still owns in Cyprus, and I began to look around. The third object I acquired was my first Cypriot piece, a beautiful Inoche, object number 3 of my collection today. Today, it is important to me to expand my knowledge of the history of Cyprus and to try and impart this knowledge to as many people as possible, not least by making my collection accessible to the public and the world of science. It is not only the ancient history of the objects that is of particular importance, but also their fate after their discovery. Many old and important collections of Cypriot antiquities have been broken up in individual sales. The collectors vanished and the objects were scattered all over the world. I want to bring these antiquities back together under one roof and reclaim the information they carry. Research on the provenience of the objects in the collection is therefore an important part of the Alexander Mallius Research Institute for Cypriot Heritage and Archaeology, America, a non-profit organization, which I founded for this purpose. Unfortunately, since the occupation of the northern part of the island, Cyprus has suffered a tremendous loss of cultural property, ripped from the private collection and museum directly from the earth and smuggled abroad where it was illegally sold. Many historical contexts have been lost forever because of the smuggling of Cypriot antiquities after 1974. As a Cypriot, I am pained by the division of the island and the loss of human life and historical cultural heritage. Therefore, in the context of our institution work, we put all our energy into identifying and tracking objects illegally taken out of the country, and we cooperate with government officials both in the Republic of Cyprus and in Germany, in order to contribute to the preservation of the island's cultural heritage. The Department of Antiquities of the Republic of Cyprus should be mentioned here as a special cooperation partner. It has always supported our work, and we are in regular contact with each other. An important step towards this aim has been taken. The book presents here is the outcome of several years of work, which, like so many other things, had been made difficult by the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, I'm all the more pleased to be able to present the final result to you. Across almost 500 pages, you will find 320 objects, most of which are published for the very first time. There are also 2 scientific articles on provenance research and the archaeometry, which we conduct to address questions about the collection at the Institute. At this point, it is particularly important to me to thank all the participants and supporters of our endeavor, especially Dr. Elena Boyachi-Richter, who has worked tirelessly to push this project forward. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the authors once again, Dr. Peter Kozins, Dr. Sabine Fourier, Alexander Gatsche, Dr. Anna Georgiadou, Dr. Artemis Georgiou, Professor Artemis Carnava, Professor Vasiliki Kassianidou, Dr. Gabriele Koiner, Dr. John Lund, Dr. Evangeline Marcu, Dr. Sergios Menelau, Irene Parma, Dr. Nicolas Papadimitriou, Dr. Elena Boyachi-Richter, Dr. Johanna Smith, and Dr. Christine Winkelmann. We have decided to dedicate this volume to the ever-memorable Dr. Vassos Karagiorgis, who shared with us important ideas and suggestions on how to proceed even before we started working on this book. Unfortunately, much to our dismay, Professor Karagiorgis died before the completion of the project. It was his idea to publish the book first in English and subsequently in German. English to make it accessible to a broader international public, German to raise awareness about the history of Cyprus, not only in our homeland, but also in Germany, the country where the collection, the future museum, and I are based today. The German edition of the book is currently being worked on, and we hope to be able to finish it within the following year. My team and I still have many things planned, and I do hope that we will inspire you with our ideas and projects, and that some of you might also like to take part in them. It is important to note that America is open to proposals for cooperation. In addition to this publication, I would like to bring to your attention an additional 2 projects that are funded by our institute. The Handbook Project on Cypriot Ceramics, headed by Dr. Sabine Rocke, which we hope to be able to resume soon, now that the unavoidable Corona break is behind us, and the Archaeological Excavation Project in Tamassos Frankisa under the direction of Dr. Matthias Recke and Dr. Felix Pobusch, who are with us today. I am confident that you will be pleased with our book. I cordially invite you all to visit our collection and our institute in Leipzig if you happen to be in the area. I hope that we can build on the foundation laid down today and continue to publish additional parts of the ancient collection, as well as of the other collections, making them accessible to the general and scientific public. Last but not least, my special thanks goes to the Archaeological Research Unit of the University of Cyprus for hosting us today in their premises. Again, I would like to say thank you to all, my family, my team, and everyone in this room who is interested in promoting and supporting the archaeology of Cyprus. Have a nice evening. Enjoy the presentation.
That's better. Turn out a bit of light so that the people can see something. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to have the opportunity today to introduce our institute and showcase our projects this evening. The concept and purpose behind the founding of the institute was to strengthen the cultural ties between Cyprus and Germany. I hope we can contribute to this together tonight. Over the next few minutes, I will provide a brief overview of our institute and the initiatives we are currently involved in. The Alexander Marios Research Institute for Cypriot Heritage and Archaeology was officially established in 2019 after around 2 years of preparation. It is a non-profit organization that coordinates its activities together with an independent scientific advisory committee. One of our core responsibilities involves the conservation and curation of the Alexander Marios collection, which comprises roughly 1,200 archaeological artifacts from Cyprus. Tonight, we are proud to present a first catalogue featuring approximately 1/4 of the collection. Alexander Marios, the collector behind this impressive collection, was deeply motivated by his personal connection to the culture and history of Cyprus. As a Cypriot, his intention was to acquire ancient objects that were scattered around the world within private collections in order to take them away from the art market. These objects will be then made accessible to the public and researchers in order to provide information about the history of ancient Cyprus. Our institution, Amricha, serves as the embodiment of this vision, preserving these objects and ensuring their accessibility for generations to come. In addition to the regular collection care, we also document each individual object and conduct extensive provenance research to all items in the collection. In this regard, we maintain trustworthy connections with relevant institutions in Cyprus responsible for antiquities. With regards to the provenances of the objects, I would like to present a few examples to you in the following slides. An important part of the Marios collections originates from old historical collections that were formed during Cyprus' time under Ottoman rule. The Antiquities Law made it possible to gain ancient objects by executing excavations. Many of these early collections were dissolved and sold in the early 20th century. Notable among these collections are pieces from the Luigi Palma di Cesnola collection, which laid the foundation for the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York and from which doublets were sold in the 1920s. Identifying these objects can often be accomplished through the 3 volumes of Cesnola's extensive and richly illustrated atlas, as well as the original New York bases with their distinctive shiny piano lacquer on gold ochre object numbers. The Marios collection also contains items from Luigi Palma di Cesnola's brother, Alessandro Palma di Cesnola. His objects can be identified similarly well via his album published in 1880 and 1881, where most of his objects are depicted on several photoplates. At the Institute, we are fortunate to possess an original edition of the 1880s album that we can use directly on the objects for study purposes. Many of his artifacts eventually found their way into the August Henry Lane Fox Pitt Rivers collection in Oxford, from which they were sold in the 1960s again. These objects can also be identified very well through the collection's richly illustrated inventory books. A digital copy is available from the Oxford Library, which helped us a lot during the work on this catalogue and with the collection still. The Alexander Marios collection also includes objects from collections formed during British rule and after Cyprus gained its independence. These include, among others, the famous collection of the zoologist Desmond Morris, from whom we acquired his archive material on Cypriot archaeology for further research analysis. Another example of this previously public known private collection is the collection of Lito and Kostakis Severis, which can be easily recognized in the Maios collection by their LS inventory numbers. Another complex which attracted a certain amount of attention in the recent past was the collection of the Naudisov Cyprus Museum in Jacksonville in North Carolina, USA, which was founded and promoted by Dr. Takei Christ, a specialist in obstetrics and gynecology. To this day, we are trying to bring back together these objects that were once public accessible in order to make them accessible again. While the process is ongoing, we have successfully acquired the library and the archive of the Christ collection through negotiations with the heirs. A substantial portion of the Maios collection comprises objects from private collections that have never been publicly displayed or studied. Many of these objects were exported from Cyprus during the early to the mid, but even until the end of the 20th century. The legal framework made it possible for everyone to take ancient objects from Cyprus as souvenir and to form smaller collections abroad, which were gradually sold after the death of their owners. The objects frequently bear different forms of export permits from various areas, as well as export numbers and landmarks. I could tell many individual stories about many collectors and their lives in connection with Cyprus, but that would go beyond the scope of my short presentation. A good start to this topic is certainly the article published in the tonight's featured catalog on the provenance of the objects, even with much more details for the already mentioned provenances. Of course, one thing needs to be added here. It is essential to emphasize the significant efforts investing in provenance research. After all, the island of Cyprus has an eventful and in many parts tragic history, which also goes hand in hand with the faith of its ancient objects. In 2018, our efforts led to the identification of an object from the collection of Christakis Hachiprodoumu, which was stolen and illegally exported during the Turkish invasion, and which we promptly reported to the relevant authorities in Cyprus and the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus in Berlin. We are awaiting its official repatriation, confident that it will occur in the near future. This case underscores the importance of the in-depth provenance research in combating the illegal trade of cultural objects and facilitating the repatriation of items that have unlawfully left their country of origin. It also highlights the significance of a comprehensive library and robust scientific networks to support such endeavors. I extend my heartiest thanks to all those involved in these efforts. Now I would like to introduce other projects and plans that relate to the Institute. Therefore, there are currently 3 projects that Amrisha supports both personally and financially. Since 2019, we have been in the process of launching a research project under the direction of Dr. Sabine Rocke from the University of Münster, which aims to develop a comprehensive handbook of Cypriot ceramics, which will serve as an overview work on this topic in the future and shall contain the latest scientific information. And starting in 2020, we have the honor of supporting the research project in Tamassos Vangesa, first with a survey and later an ongoing excavation directed by Dr. Matthias Recke from the University of Frankfurt am Main and with Dr. Philipp Kobusch as field director from the University of Kiel. Members of the excavation team are present here tonight and are available to answer any further questions you may have about this project. Since the beginning of 2020, we have been collaborating with the Department of Conservation and Restoration at the University of Applied Science in Berlin. Together, we are investigating restoration techniques applied to ancient objects and conducting archaeometrical analysis of objects in the SRM collection. Our endeavors align with the globally acknowledged ethical standards for restoration, as well as the most recent advancements in conservation restoration research. These collected information are evaluated together with the students and the professors and providing completely new, exciting information about Cypriot objects in their older and more recent history. At the project's conclusion, we will publish a book detailing the history of conservation and restoration technology, along with archaeometry findings related to the Cypriot objects. In addition to these collaborative ventures, we work diligently to share our scientific findings and insights with the general, but also scientific public. This includes our 3D online museum and ongoing archaeometric projects focused on manufacturing techniques and preferable non-invasive material analysis, both of which are featured in our recent publication catalog. Gradually, we are expanding our outreach to the public, but still on a rather small scale. We offer guided tours during events such as the annual meeting of the German Archaeological Association in 2023 in Leipzig, as well as workshops introducing Cypriot pottery to students from various universities. If any of you happens to find yourself in Leipzig, we extend a warm invitation to visit our institute and collection. Currently, we are in the planning stages of a new museum building and securing the necessary permits to make our collection accessible to a broader audience. Beyond serving as a museum, we envision creating a cultural hub with specific focus on Cyprus and its people. This initiative will complement the diversity of museums in and around the city of Leipzig. We are already in contact with most of them and planning the future in this very prosperous German city. To set a scale, Leipzig will soon reach the population of 620,000 inhabitants, making it the 8th largest city in Germany and the 2nd largest in East Germany after Berlin. With optimism for the future, I conclude my presentation. I invite you to follow our journey and stay updated on Amricha and its project through our social media accounts. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have after the event, but you can also reach us using the contact details shown here. And again, once you are in Leipzig, contact us and see for yourself who we are and what we are up to. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, dear Alexander, for the important and interesting information. Dear Professor Koyman, liebe Gabi,
Thank you. Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and present and online, dear Director Vionis, dear Ms. Alios, dear Elena. It's a special pleasure and honor for me to be here with you in these wonderful rooms of ARU and to have the privilege of presenting this brand new catalog, which documents an impressive collection assembled by Mr. Alexander Malios in Leipzig, Germany. I sincerely thank Elena Boyaci, who gave me her confidence and entrusted me with this book presentation. First, I would like to tell you something about the collector, Mr. Malios, how the idea for this book was born, how the catalog was created. Finally, I will go into the contents of this catalog. Afterwards, you will have the possibility to ask the authors for details on the objects. So we'll have heard of Mr. Malios, of course, of his childhood and how he spent the time with his parents. And I found this on the homepage of Richard. I really liked it. And I have to show you these photographs. The passion for collecting antique objects seized Mr. Malios at an early age. It all began in Amathus with archaeological excursions together with his parents and siblings. He has a Cypriot father and a German mother. He was born in Dresden. His father had studied and graduated in Germany. And after completing his studies, he moved to Cyprus with his family, where they lived in Limassol. Alexander Malios attended school there and completed his military service in Cyprus. He then went to East Germany to study medicine like his father. In 1989, when the Iron Curtain fell, he decided to enter the real estate development business. And I would like to stress that in 2008, he and his wife, Birgit Mallias, also founded the Leipzig Children's Foundation, which works for the benefit of children and teenagers in Leipzig and the surrounding areas. Leipzig is a city of science and culture, and thus a good place to collect and display antiquities. Famous editor and art historian Heinrich Bockhaus collected separate objects. He made a trip in 1858 to Cyprus and bought 2 female limestone heads in Larnaca, which were said to have been excavated in Dallenbach, but are destroyed now or lost now. As did Valentin Weisbach in Berlin, who bought separate artworks from Max Onefald Richter and later dedicated to the Museum für Völkerkunde in Leipzig, which handed it over to Berlin again. It was the Museum für Deutsche Geschichte in the 1970s. Now they are kept in the Museum für Fond für Geschichte. However, separate objects are still held by the Museum of Leipzig University, which was founded in 1409. Few objects are still in the Grasse Museum für angewandte Kunst, the Ex-Völkerkunde Museum. In 2016, Alexander Mallias acquired his first separate object, as he told us, an archaic bichrome ware shark in Germany. He continued to collect separate antiquities, acquiring the objects from different sources, always being keen to buy objects with documented collection history. One of his sources was a collection of the Josef Meyer Riefenthaler in Vienna. He was a physician, Generalarzt within Nicosia, and had founded a vast collection in the 1960s. After his death, the objects were sold by the art dealer Christoph Backer in Vienna. I myself saw some of these artworks on a fair in the Viennese Secession. Among them, a superb Hellenistic limestone head of a youth you see from back on the left side, but you will see it from front later on. It's now in a collection published in this catalog by Elena Boyarchi. And I was nearly speechless looking at this breathtaking object. The chronological scope of Mr. Mallias' collection ranges from the earliest Xerxes to the Byzantine era, with a particular emphasis on vessels, whose patterns rightly fascinate him, and also sculpture. Cypriot art is the most prominent, but not the only field he is collecting. A further highlight are paintings and graphic arts of the Dresden school from the first half of the 20th century. Acquiring objects from collection liquidations is the main goal for Mr. Mallias. He intends to give back visibility to these artworks, which have been hidden often for many years. He works in close cooperation with the Department of Antiquities. A timid skiffos illegally exported and originated from the Hatshepsut collection will soon be restituted to Cyprus, which has heard it from Alexander Gertze. At this point, I have to mention the Alexander Mallias Research Institute for Subject Heritage and Archaeology, or AMRICHA, founded by Mr. Mallias. This institute is dedicated to researching, teaching, presenting, and promoting the culture and history of Cyprus in Leipzig. The AMRICHA is the frame and base for the Mallias collection, but it also supports projects on Cypriot archaeology, as the excavation of Kamos of Stera Frangisa, or a handbook of ancient Cypriot ceramics, which shall cover the chronological range from the Neolithic until the 7th century AD. Furthermore, I would like to draw attention to the already partially established online database, which can be found on the website of the AMRICHA Research Institute and presents the artifacts in 3D views. When the Mallias collection grew, the idea was born to make it accessible to the public and to publish the artworks. He told Elena Boyarchi about his plans and came up with this idea to Vassos Karagiorgis, who was enthusiastic. He provided the initial impetus and proposed Elena Boyarchi, already known to Alexander Mallias, to take over the coordination of the publication project. Karagiorgis encouraged Elena Boyarchi to undertake this project and supported her scientifically in doing so. Unfortunately, it was not granted him to live the release of this book. He passed away in December of 2021. Thus, the volume is dedicated to him, the mentor, master, and fervent agent of Cypriot archaeology. It was him who connected Cyprus with the international community, who provided numerous foreign missions with the opportunity to conduct research in Cyprus. Also, the Graz Amageti survey has been made possible by this very friendly and open-minded policy of the Department of Antiquities. I have to thank for this friendliness, which is outstanding. And he consistently worked to document objects located at road leading to the publication of numerous catalogues of Cypriot art, including one in my home country of Austria. It was his wish to initiate the database of Cypriot objects abroad at the Cyprus Institute. It was him who also contributed to the first selection of pieces in a collection of Mr. Alexander Mallius for this catalogue. The collection currently holds approximately 1,200 objects, which shall be published in due course. The research and editing were done partly during the COVID-19 period, which was very challenging, especially for Elena Boyachi, whose endurance and toughness made this book possible. She directed the measuring, photographing, and kept the researchers going on, providing them with photographs for the catalogue entries. Thank you very much for your support and your patience, dear Elena. Furthermore, I have to mention Alexander Gace, the keeper of the collection. He's in charge of developing the inventory books, of checking provenance, of restoring concerning issues. His input in providing all necessary information and his collaboration with Elena was valuable. All the wonderful photos in this book come from him and his wife, Irene Palmer. The decision to produce the printed publication is highly commendable, as it remains an indispensable tool for research, given the fact that internet connections are not always available or that licenses may expire. Now, at a few technical features, the exquisitely equipped catalogue with hardcover comprises 487 pages in glossy paper of Italian quality, as I heard today, with over 800 photographs. The objects of the collection are published all in color, thus providing a vivid impression of fabric, slit, and coloring of the objects. The graphic design was accomplished by Lydia Cipriano. The texts were proofread by Emilia Pierua. The Greek texts were translated into English by Crispina Pichetti. The book was printed by Kailas Printers and Lithographers Limited in Nicosia. And I may name the archaeologists, of course, the colleagues who worked on the objects: Peter Cossins, Sabine Fourier, Anna Gagliardo, Artemis Yavio, Artemis Canava, Vasiliki Cassianido, myself, John Lund, Evangeline Marcus, Sergius Menelao, Nikolaus Papadimitriou, Elena Bolche-Richter, Joanna Smith, and Christine Winkelmann. What does the book contain? Introductory notes by Alexander Mallius and Elena Boyachi explain how this catalogue came into being and informed on the history and philosophy of collecting of Mr. Mallius' collection. Of course, the catalogue offers a chronological chart. Furthermore, a map with places mentioned in the text offers help to the reader who does not know Cyprus and its archaeological sites. It also contains research results on the provenances of the published objects, written by Alexander Gace, creator of the Mallius collection. In his essays, he analyzes the historical backgrounds and provenances, such as from American, British, French, German, and Austrian collections. All the labels and inventory numbers were not removed, but remain in the objects in order to preserve information on a collection history, a fact that is very important for doing research on the history of objects, and more as many of these objects changed its owners for several times. Irene Bamagace, conservator and member of the AMRICHA, contributed archaeometrical analysis on the colors of rider figurine, of RTI photographs of metal objects, which are able to render the objects in a more plastic way and give more details, of 3D models on X-ray images in order to control the kind of fabrication and the content and on shape surface comparison. Now to the core of the catalogue. As I said above, the objects range from the Neolithic to the Roman age. The chronological units of the book are visible on this slide. The objects represent the different periods of Cypriot culture and are both typical as well as singular specimens. They are very well preserved and thus are perfect for further research. The objects are chronologically listed, arranged in groups, well known from catalogues directed by Vassos Georgiotis, All objects are published in color with, in most cases, at least 2, often more photographs. The catalog entries include date, material, preservation, measurements, provenance, inventory number, in many cases, extensive descriptions, analysis, bibliography, and comparisons. Selected objects are highlighted with an additional photograph covering a whole page. I show here a Hellenistic terracotta figure and Aphrodite. I would briefly like to present a selection of the objects. For detailed questions, I may refer to the authors, which will be available for the audience after my presentation. The earliest artifact are stone objects from the Neolithic age, followed by picrolite cruciform pendants from the Chalcolithic age. The earliest phase of the Bronze Age is represented by the earliest vessel in the Malleus collection, small jar. The Philia phase, a small bottle of red polished black top ware, first in a row of several red polished vases, which can, due to their decoration shape, be assigned to specific areas in Cyprus, as the tall-necked bottle you saw just was, which was produced in the Karpas region. This is an overview of red polished pottery in the collection. The middle separate red polished wares with linear and circular patterns, sometimes encrusted, come from southwest of Cyprus. The middle separate white painted ware is characterized by white slip and red, brownish, or black decoration. The shapes of the vessels are bowls, jugs, flasks, spouted ring vases, animal-shaped askoi, some equipped with string hose. The collection hosts the characteristic wares of the late Bronze Age. The base ringware, plastic and painted decoration in bowl-shaped form, named after the ring and the base of the vessel and used for the transport of liquids, for instance, opium. This ware was popular in the Levant, Egypt, but also in the Western Mediterranean. And the white slipware with its characteristic white wash and red, brown, or black patterns, which remind of embroidery sometimes. Predominant shades are bowls and tankards, such as base ringware. The white slipware vessels were exported to destinations in the Eastern and Western Mediterranean. The collection also holds figurines of females of the Middle Cypriot and Late Cypriot period, as well as bull figurines made in the red polished and base ringware. Special object, the bronze oxide ingot, which is testimony to the island's copper resources and bronze production in the Bronze Age. Such ingots were found throughout the Mediterranean, especially and also in shipwrecks, especially in the Ouroboros and Cape Caledonia shipwrecks. They have preserved many of them. Lead isotope analysis has shown that this ingot most probably comes from Cyprus, especially from the Solea region. The geometric Cypro-Archaic period are represented by a huge collection of vases, one of the collector's clear preferences, and characteristic representatives of the corpus of Cyprus. The vase collection consists of white painted, bichrome, black and red, and black slip wares, and includes different shapes of jugs, plates, flasks, and even a wall bracket with an animal head. See here the plate, which provides the logo for Amricha, I suppose, and here a collection this logo with the checkerboard patterns and wavy lines. These plates were used for serving meals and were hung on the walls in order to display the characteristic decor and vivid colors. And there are also pictorial pictures can be found in these vases. Birds, for instance, are popular features of Cypro-geometric and Cypro-Archaic period, painted on bichrome and whitewashed ware, white painted ware, and displayed in various shapes as kilikes, jugs, and amphorae. And there are plant motifs on amphorae as wreaths, but also single motifs as tree or palm trees, stylized like the birds, but nevertheless easily recognizable. Several vessels belong to the floral style and were made in the Salamis region. Bichrome ware vessels often show concentric circles, which are also a characteristic pattern for the black on red wares produced in the Paleparthos region, which are represented in the collection by bowls and jugs. A trefoil-mouthed jug here in the black and red technique shows an animal painted in white grazing near a plant. A spouted jug with animal head was found in a tomb and may have had ritual function. The collection holds several archaic terracotta figurines depicting males with conical headdress in different sizes, facial features often handworked, the smaller ones holding weapons with their face details painted or nearly without facial features. The lower part of these figurines is sometimes perforated, as you see here on the right. Maybe movable legs were inserted. The horse and rider figurines are characteristically shaped and painted, each specimen handmade. Most riders wear helmets. Many of these have been found in sanctuaries as in Aya Irini and the Polonilate sanctuary in Kurion, and some of them, as the rider figurine number 189, exceptionally painted, although archaeometric analysis confirmed the turquoise pigments as maybe later addition. A rider with legs on one side of his animal and a peculiar backrest is a rare example with well-preserved coloring. The right side. The other way to travel was driving in chariot. Several examples show the warrior and the driver. A group of a quadriga depicts 3 people and 4 horses. The female figurines of the archaic period are characterized, as other males as warriors, by their affinity to love, sex, and fertility, such as the goddess with uplifted arms, or female figurines supporting their breasts, sometimes adorned with heavy jewelry and seals. They most probably are mendicants. Others are tambourine or lyre players, making music in ritual contexts, or ring dancers. The collection keeps late archaic and early classical limestone sculptures depicting male heads with pointed caps, fillets, or wreaths, all of them belonging to votive sculptures. The statuette of a ram horn deity, probably first Ammon, reclining on the back of a ram once, was part of a gymnateria. The fragment of a bronze bowl preserved a Cypro-syllabic inscription, which can be read as Ake se Toke, the name, or Ake se Age, son of Ke, and then breaks off. A bichrome red jug, we come now to the Cypro-classical period. Bichrome red jug and a plain white ware jug with bulls per town probably belong to Marion's pottery tradition and are late representatives of jugs with women's figurines on the shoulder. Then the collection holds some attic vases by a red-figured Ascos and early classical Culex and other shapes as the cantorus and the bowl. Attic vases were common imports in classical Cyprus. Such perfectly preserved specimens most probably come from tombs. The collection keeps several terracottas and 2 male limestone statues, one of which is nearly perfectly preserved here on the right side, representing votive figures wearing wreaths and offerings, for instance, a bird, clad in Greek-style garments, although the fragmentary one wears a belt, which is rather rare. Both seem to come from the region Golgo Axos Idalia. There's also female votary, female limestone statues, female votary offering a kid is a rather rare example given the fact the main animal offering is a bird and that kids mostly are offered by males, predominantly in the region Idalian Axos Kitian. She wears a sakos, which is also the headdress of a female head on the right side. She is adorned with characteristic jewelry of this period and shows a typical face with a faint smile. The collection holds also 2 temple boys, one in terracotta and one in limestone. These figurines were dedicated by happy parents to have a male child in good health, both in sanctuaries of male and female deities. The Siglos of Otibal, king of Kition, shows one of the main deities of Kition, Heracles Melkart, and a lion attacking a stag. Alexander III had exploited several mints in Cyprus. These ones came from Salamis during his lifetime, and after his death, spearhead, and also maybe the P epsilon marks of the myth of Salamis, and show that it is Athena and Heracles and Oberus, as well as Nicanor, Aetophoros on the reverse. Gold was not only used for coins, but also for jewelry, as an earring with bull's proterm and spear ornament with a griffin proterm show. Animal heads are considered to transport Eastern, especially Persian, influence. The Hellenistic period is represented by ceramic and glass vessels, small flask of glass you see here, laginoi, a relief bowl, and one unguentarium. There are terracotta figurines depicting an Aphrodite standing and leaning on a pillar with crossed legs, mantle covering her hips and legs, a type popular throughout the Hellenistic period. The good preservation of this Aphrodite might point to a tomb gift, maybe for a girl who did not live her marriage. The type demonstrates that Cyprus belonged to the Hellenistic Koine, with imitating, adapting, and producing Greek Hellenistic types. Two fragmented terracottas of children are figurines which could have been votive dedications, which are kept in households or could have accompanied the deceased in their tombs. The head with a round face on the right side and a wreath is a common type in Cypriot plastic art, maybe depicting a temple boy. Of special interest are the limestone sculptures which served as votive figures in Cypriot sanctuaries and were thought to be the representative of the dedicators. You see here this head, which you have seen from the back, which was sold by Christoph Bacher in Vienna. Most of them come from the Mesauria, especially sanctuaries at Dalion, Golba, Assos, but also at Pyla, Kition, Salamis, Voni, Lefonico, and other sites produced many high-quality votive sculptures. They were worked in a special limestone had been quarried in this area. The head of this youth is a very fine piece showing a young, delicate face with soft rendering of the epidermis, having his hair cut in short curls, wearing a wreath, thus indicating his ritual purpose. He can be compared with other sculptures from Golgoi and thus may come from a workshop in this area. His features, note also the Venus rings on the neck, are typical for the portrait sculptures of the Ptolemaic period. The other sculptures depict votive figures as well. One of them was a wreath, two of them a causia. The causia was a Macedonian headdress and was worn mainly in the 4th and 3rd centuries BC. One of the young men with causias nearly completely preserved, showing his long garments, his long dress, a chiton, and a himation. So limestone sculptures depict females. A torso revealed female statue, only the upper body is preserved, which compares to sculptures from Assos, and a female head with bun and a ponytail, maybe depicting the goddess Artemis. The Roman period is represented by vessels of red slip, red glazed wares, and Eastern sigillator A, and lamps. The focus lies on lamps which show different motifs in the disci as gods like Apollo and Nike on a chariot. 4 lamps were inscriptions of their workshops. 2 of them can be attributed to specific workshops. One is a lamp of Faustus, maybe an Italian lamp maker moving to Egypt and Petra, and displays gladiators as well as another lamp. Gladiators seem to have a certain popularity in Cyprus. The other one is a lamp by the lamp maker Romanisis, probably from Knidos, and shows a stylized frieze with lotus, with flowers and animals. The collection holds several well-preserved glass vessels, ranging from a Hellenistic early imperial period until late antiquity. One glass vessel has the shape of a bird. Others are unguentaria, amphoriscoid, jugs, jars, bowls, beakers, and one steering rod. The late antique glasses, here on the right side, in the collection have specific shapes, sometimes with indentations. An Augustan bronze coin with the temple of Aphrodite in Palephasos was minted under Proconsul Aulus Plautius in 102 AD. It shows the well-known features of the temple of the Paphian Aphrodite with the bitylos within a shrine and a semicircular courtyard. Concluding, I would like to stress the significance of this catalogue which lies in the fact that these objects are not only for the collector's enjoyment, but unlike many other private collections, are made accessible to the public, to researchers and enthusiasts alike. The first step in this direction is the processing and publication of these objects, which are now published exemplarily in this catalog. Again, I have to thank Alexander Malias, Elena Poitier, and all collaborators who worked on this catalog. It's a catalog that is visually and scientifically exquisitely done, thus being a big profit for archaeological research and a step to the understanding of Cypriot's archaeological past. Furthermore, it will be serving as a cultural ambassador for Cyprus by showcasing exemplary and high-quality objects. It should be part of every library for Cypriot archaeology, and it's also quite affordable at a price of 39.90 euro, available through Amricha. I would like to thank you for your attention. I hope I could awaken your interest. Have a look into this catalog if you are here in present, or look at the website of Amricha. With these remarks, I close, and I would like to point out that authors are now available for questions you may have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, dear Gabriele, for the excellent presentation and your kind words. Your speech radiated the warmth you put into the presentation, bringing at the same time the publication into life. At the conclusion of today's presentation, please allow me to share a few closing remarks from my perspective. To begin, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the collector Alexander Mallios for entrusting me his wonderful collection, granting me the responsibility of overseeing the general coordination and editing of this volume. It is his profound and genuine love for his homeland, as well as his sincere motivation to make a substantial contribution to the protection and promotion of Cyprus cultural heritage that prompted me to gladly accept his invitation for collaboration. I am convinced that Alexander Mallios feels the duty to rescue artifacts that were dispersed beyond Cyprus and give them a common home in Germany, where they will be accessible to researchers and interested parties, all the while abiding by international legislation regarding the movement and protection of cultural heritage. By founding a research center in Leipzig, he aims to support and promote Cypriot archaeological research. The substantial work of 487 pages, as you've been informed, was the result of collective undertaking involving numerous scholars who have worked towards bringing this book to completion. I am deeply grateful to the contributors of this catalog, 14 specialists in specific fields of Cypriot archaeology, whose names are listed on the slide. They promptly responded to the call to study the objects, collaborated in the meticulous selection of objects for publication based on diverse criteria, and graciously provided numerous comprehensive entries. It should be emphasized that due to the extraordinary measures imposed during the pandemic, an on-site investigation in Leipzig was for most of the contributors impossible. Therefore, they have studied the Mallios collection through photographs. The results of the research conducted by Alexander Gachev, presented in his essay, are highly significant. In extent, my warm appreciation to him for this work and for his ongoing efforts in seeking information in archives and other sources related to the history of the objects, as well as for cataloging and photographing the objects. I also thank Irene Palmer research assistant of the Institute, for her valuable archaeometrical investigations and for enriching the publication with the corresponding essay. Last but not least, I'm grateful to archaeologist Emilia Pierua for the language editing, translator Despina Pirketi, and graphic designer Lydia Kyprianou for designing and patiently setting up this book. Dear Gabby, that's a picture that, I don't know if you know it, down to the right. It was in the year 2002. A young archaeologist organized by Vassos Karagiorgis through the Leventis Foundation. We met there German-speaking students and presented our thesis in Berlin. Among us is also Anya, who is sitting down there. And of course, Cohen. Dear guests, it is with profound feelings of appreciation and gratitude that we dedicate this publication to the father of Cypriot archaeology, the ever-memorable Professor Vassos Karagiorgis. As you already heard, the Alexander Malias collection was known to Professor Karagiorgis. He knew at first sight this was a collection of important items. He bade me make sure the collection would be published and assured me he would be on hand for scientific guidance like he always did. Unfortunately, Vassos Karagiorgis left us before the completion of this publication. The least we could do is dedicate it to his memory as a token of utmost gratitude for everything he has given us. Personally, I feel blessed to have known him, learned from him, and worked with him. May his memory be eternal. Tonight among us is the daughter of Vassos Karagiorgis, Mrs. Clio Karagiorgis. Dear Clio, please accept the book, the results of our last joint work with your father. Alexander, να δώσουμε το βιβλίο. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're so happy to see published all the good courses and good things you want to have published, to have all the attention all collection. Thank you. Sorry. I know. Dear guests, please feel free to make questions. Otherwise, questions can be made with a glass of wine outside at the entrance. You're all welcome. Thank you for coming.